This week on Take It Out, we tell you how Russia is using high-tech ways to track and control its citizens. Find out why AI is a double-edged sword. We bring you a step-by-step guide that can help you find your lost or stolen phone. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
This weekend, we have a cracker of a vehicle on the show, one that has been hotly anticipated for a fairly long time. It is the Maruti Suzuki Jimny. A route that is lined with loose rocks, gravel, some dips, some crazy bumps here and there. And I can't tell you, the smile that the Jimny affords you is not a smile, it's a proper laugh. The Maruti Suzuki Jimny. This weekend on Pit Stop at these times, only on WION World is One.
Bakhmut is the longest public ongoing battle. It is a turning point.
The Wagner Group does Russia's dirty work.
It is really war between Russia and NATO.
This week on This World, we take a look at the latest situation on the war in Ukraine. What exactly is happening in Bakhmut? We take a look at the Indo-Pacific, the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Papua New Guinea, and what the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea had to say about it. We turn our attention to a possible Mossad spy ring in Turkey. And we end by taking a look at the impact that AI has been making on the stock market, the Nvidia result, and also fake images crashing the markets. All of that this week on This World. Do tune in.
Gravitas tells you stories that others won't. These are the stories that we brought to you last week.
Could the Ukraine war go nuclear? Over the weekend, we heard the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, compare Bakhmut to Hiroshima. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Australia, and this is the third and final leg of his three-nation visit. Japan, the only country among the G7 that is not a part of the NATO, has said that it still has no plans to join the organization. Will Wagner lead a push against Russian President Vladimir Putin? Will this man, Yevgeny Prigozhin, challenge Putin as Russia's president? Shifting focus now to what's happening in China. The country is battling a new COVID-19 wave.
The informed show for an intelligent audience.
On Inside South Asia this week, Kashmir and the G20 summit. How has Pakistan reacted for this event? Meet a double amputee who beat all odds to reach the top of the world.
and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. Let's start by looking at the top stories this hour. Ukraine has shot down 37 Russian cruise missiles and 29 drones overnight, as per its army, a day after the heaviest barrage of the Ukrainian capital Kiev since Moscow's invasion. Japan puts its ballistic missile defenses on alert, warns that it would shoot down any projectile that threatens its territory after North Korea notified Japan of a satellite launch between the 31st of May and the 11th of June. China will send its first civilian astronaut into space as part of a crewed mission to the Tiangong space station as it pursues its ambitious plans for a manned lunar landing by 2030. India's Unified Payments Interface or UPI is on trajectory to achieve an astonishing milestone of 1 billion transactions a day by 2026 to 27, as per a report by PwC India. Let's begin now. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says that he plans to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin in a due course. Now, as the cost of living crisis in UK deepens, the UK government discusses plans to introduce price cap on basic foods like milk, bread. However, British media quoted Downing Street sources who claim that currently there are no plans for mandatory price caps. Supermarkets in UK, they are expected to select the items which they will consider to cap here. UK government has stressed that the plan is supposed to be constructive and not an element of compulsion. In April, food prices rose by 19.1%, and that's the second highest rate in 45 years, as the inflation rate stands at 8.7%. Meanwhile, the British Retail Consortium says the measures will not make much of a difference here. The soaring prices of some food products indicate that the inflation has not come down as predicted by many of the experts here. Earlier, a report by London School of Economics said Brexit has been responsible for a third of food price inflation in the UK since 2019, between December 2019 and March 2023. Regulatory, sanitary and other border inspections added over £7 billion to the total domestic grocery prices, or £250 per family. Data showed inflation figures have exceeded expectations for 3 months in a row, and inflation is becoming more persistent and penetrating the previously unaffected areas such as grocery and mobile phone bills here as well. Now, for more on this, Mike Buckley, senior journalist and director to Independent Commission on UK-EU, joins us from Sheffield, England. Thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us of the current situation in the UK? As I mentioned, the cost of living crisis is deepening. How do you see the situation unfolding going forward?
So the cost of living crisis here is getting worse rather than better. Inflation has come down a little bit, but nowhere near as fast as people thought that it would. And it seems that the government doesn't really have a response to this. I mean, every month they complain about the figures and say that they want them to come down, but they don't seem to have any policies in place to make inflation come down. They're relying on the Bank of England putting up interest rates, but of course all that does is make mortgage holders, of whom there are about 8 million in the UK, poorer still. So it's a very blunt instrument to try and bring inflation down. And currently, anyway, it seems to be ineffective, despite the fact interest rates have gone up a lot in the last year. So it looks like the government really are quite ineffective and unable to deal with the situation. They're now talking about price controls on basic goods like bread and milk in supermarkets. But as so often with this government, they talk about it, but they're not actually doing it. So if they did it, it might have an impact and help poorer people particularly, but they're not even doing it. They're just talking about it. So in the meantime, prices are still going up. People are still getting poorer. And of course, people at the bottom of the pile in the UK are simply unable to buy the food that they need to feed themselves or their families. And for some months now, there have been stories about particularly parents choosing to eat only one meal a day or maybe 2 meals a day so that they can feed their children the food that they need. They rightly, but very sadly, prioritize for their children.
Right, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, a report by the London School of Economics too has said that Brexit has been responsible for a third of food price inflation in the UK since 2019. How do you assess these findings?
Brexit was always going to make this country poorer, and that was made very clear before the referendum in 2016, but was, of course, denied by Boris Johnson and others on the Leave campaign, and wasn't really publicised properly by the press either, who did, I think, a poor job in the referendum of explaining the consequences to the British public. And, of course, since then, for most of the time, we've had a government that's been singing the praises of Brexit and saying it's going to be a great success for this country, against all evidence from experts, from the London School of Economics and from anybody else. So the fact that we're now in a situation where we're in a significant crisis because of COVID as well, and because of the war in Ukraine and climate change and other issues, Brexit is just making that worse. And you're right, collectively in the UK, we've spent an extra £7 billion on food alone. We'll have spent a great deal more on other imports that will have gone up in price because of Brexit. So it's progressively making our country poorer, it's making our businesses less viable, it's making all of us as individuals and households poorer as well. And yet, we're still in a situation where the government is refusing to accept that fact and refusing to do anything to get us a better agreement with the European Union. The opposition Labour Party is now be clear in saying that it will get us a better deal with the European Union if it wins the next general election.
Right. Mike Buckley, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with your insights on this.
Thank you.
Now, before we go on any further, let's just go across to my correspondent, Oliver Regan. Over to you, Oliver.
Police in the UK will now stop attending emergency calls that are related to mental health incidents. London's Metropolitan Police added the caveat that it will only attend such calls if there's an immediate threat to life. The move is expected to be introduced in September. The main aim of the move is to optimise the resources of the police force. According to reports, in the last 5 years, the police forces across the UK have seen a rise in the number of mental health related incidents. Mental health cases often fall to police as people see the force as the first resort in a time of crisis. The chiefs also stressed the lack of capacity in communities to deal with growing mental health demands. According to police institutes, police officers are estimated to spend 20 to 40% of their time dealing with such incidents. The pressure on Met Police also increased after the NHS strikes. In January, the UK government announced £150 million of investment to improve NHS infrastructure to treat mental health cases. The government claims the funding will allow for the procurement of up to 90 new mental health ambulances. This will also allow specialists and nurses to react more quickly to mental health emergencies.
Mr. Speaker, I just addressed the issue with the Home Secretary, but he talked about fighting crime. I would hope, Mr. Speaker.
A study conducted by the UK Labour Party reveals that the gender pay gap will not close before 2050, which means a new generation of female workers born near to the passing of equal pay in 1970 are unlikely to see the gap close during their work age. The research was conducted by the Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities, Annalise Dodds. Data by the Office for National Statistics show the gender pay gaps are the highest for women in their 50s, which is 11.7% for full-time workers. This is nearly 4 times as high as compared with women in their 30s. The Labour Party said the age group has closed by only 5.1% since 2010, indicating the slide from when the Conservative Party came to power. According to the Labour Party calculations, the pay gap for women in their 50s will not be eliminated for another 27 years. And while accusing the Conservative Party of abandoning a whole generation of women workers, the Labour Party have grabbed the opportunity to endorse their own political agenda for the next general election. Labour's vowed to support women in their 40s. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has won the Turkey presidential runoff elections. The High Electoral Board chief made the official announcement stating Erdogan had secured 52.14% of the votes, and his opponent Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu received just 47.86%. There was a gap of over 2 million votes between the candidates. After his victory, Erdogan greeted his supporters at the presidential palace and thanked them. This victory extends his 20-year rule for 5 more years. Voters. Meanwhile, the opposition leader, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, took a pro-Kurdish stance, and he had an informal alliance with a pro-Kurdish party, which Erdogan portrayed as a political wing of banned militants.
When it comes to inclusivity, I mean, if we look at certain segments of the society who were neglected in the past, many decades, how they have been included into the society, be it in minorities or be it in the Kurds and other segments of the society, I think that inclusiveness is there when it comes to social policies, when it comes to the actual on the ground. This is something that Mr. Erdogan has been successful in doing, and hence why he's able to, cherish 52% of the votes, despite the fact that he has some economic challenges which he has to fix, or the fact that he has been, leading for the past 20 years, and there is some sort of fatigue in which is only normal at this point, but he's still able to win very comfortably.
Another reason could be Erdogan's move to raise salaries and incentives for the people, despite the high inflation in Turkey. And now the first priority of Erdogan is dealing with the inflation rate, which is at 40% annually and has led to a cost of living crisis in the country. The national currency lira has lost more than half its value in the last 2 years. The central bank, which is trying to prop up the value of the lira, is spending $25 billion a month. Erdogan addressed his supporters and said inflation was the most important issue in the country. He also said it was time to unite around Turkey's national hopes and dreams.
Solving the problems caused by the price increases as a result of inflation and compensating for welfare losses is the most urgent issue of the process ahead. It is not difficult for us to find a solution to these issues. Confidence and stability are the most important things, and we will continue with these principles. We will build a strong economy around these rules.
The world's fight against fake news might have received a big setback. Microblogging platform Twitter has exited the European Union's disinformation code, which aims to fight harmful content and fake news. This comes after Twitter became the only major tech company to not submit a complete report under the code, which it promised to follow last year, before the microblogging platform was taken over by Elon Musk. The European Union said that Twitter's report was short of data. It also added that the report didn't include commitments that would enforce fact-checking. But Twitter quitting the disinformation code does not mean there won't be any enforcement. The EU's Internal Market Commissioner Thierry Breton said that obligations to fight fake news will remain. The coming months will be tough for Twitter. Fighting disinformation will soon become a legal obligation under the EU's Digital Services Act. However, Twitter's operations have been affected amid the ongoing job cuts, which raises doubts whether the company will be able to comply with the new law. Failing to follow the new law could cost fines of up to 6% of its annual revenue, or even prompt the EU to ban the platform altogether. Let's see what's making news in the world of tech. Meta continues to add new features to its instant messaging platform, WhatsApp. The company is reportedly testing an update that will allow users to share their screens. And this will be similar to what one can do on video conferencing platforms like Microsoft Teams and Zoom. Yes, WhatsApp is indeed set to revolutionise the way Android users communicate. The screen sharing feature has been in high demand among users, and WhatsApp's implementation will make it accessible to its massive user base of over 2 billion people. To screen share on WhatsApp, Meta users need to initiate a call and then select the screen share option located in the bottom left corner. This will allow users to mirror their smartphone display entirely. When enabled, the app displays a disclaimer stating that WhatsApp will have access to whatever is being shown on the screen. The addition of screen sharing will enable users to collaborate more effectively and will make it easier to share presentations, review documents or troubleshoot technical issues with friends, family or colleagues. It will also prove immensely useful for remote working professionals. Let us remind you that the feature is currently in the beta phase and is expected to be available in the next few weeks. British rock band Queen is in the early stages of selling its hefty back catalogue. Yes, you did hear that right, a band which was formed in 1970 in London and consisted of Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor and John Deacon, is all set to set their body of work. Currently, Disney Music Group owns the band's back catalogue in North America. If reports are to be believed, the rights to their catalogue will be acquired by none other than Universal Music. The sale could surpass $1 billion and is expected to close within a month. Although there are only 3 surviving members of Queen, May, Taylor and Deacon, the amount will be split equally between their estates and Freddie Mercury's estate. The $1 billion music catalogue includes 15 studio albums, 10 live albums and 2 soundtrack albums. The band also enjoyed a huge bump in streaming and physical sales following the release of the 2018 biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, which grossed over $910 million worldwide against a roughly $50 million budget. But this is not the first time such a sellout will take place over the past couple of years. Many artists have sold their published catalogues and it's become commonplace, and sales have decreased due to streaming. Many rockers have offloaded their publishing rights. This includes the likes of Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan and Sting, among many others. The 2022-2023 Premier League went down in dramatic fashion with 2 teams going down. Leicester City's fairy tale run in the league came to an end just 7 years after they won the title, and Everton survived a nerve-shredding afternoon to keep their top flight status intact. Well, Manchester in the 85th minute.
4 or 5 players with niggles, not big injuries, but they are injured. They are not fit for a few days already, weeks. The guys who didn't play here and normally play, they were really exhausted yesterday, day before. We spoke again with them and said mentally they was completely drained. So and the guys who play today deserve it. And for me, it's important to see them, how they feel.
United at the King Power Stadium. Harvey Barnes fired Leicester ahead in the first half to lift them above Everton on goal difference. Wout Faes doubled the lead in the 62nd minute, but Pablo Fornals pulled one back for the final minutes of stoppage time of the Everton versus Bournemouth game to find out their fate. The Toffees knew that a win would keep them in the Premier League and relegate Leicester. Abdoulaye Doucouré secured probably their most important goal of the season, and many. Now, after nearly 9 months of footballing action, let's take a look at how the table looks after the final day.